When it comes to bath products, salt and clay bars are a popular request, but you can get a wide variety of results with some of the same ingredients if they're combined differently. In today's episode of Thermal Mermaid, I'm making rose linen. This is a pink sea salt and kaolin clay spa bar. But first, I know many of you out there are members at Thermal Mermaid, and you might be headed over to the Learning Library members directory to print out the recipe and additional notes I have published about this recipe. If that's you, let me show you quickly where to find this. In your members dashboard, scroll down to the recipe directory, click on clay spa soap bars, and then you'll find a recipe listed under pink sea salt and kaolin clay. I also call this one my rose linen because of the amazing fragrance, and that's how customers have started to ask for it at my market tables. Alright, so let's get started. This is a 2-part recipe, and you can make it in a flat mold or in a tall mold. Either way, I'm using 3 pounds of soap separated into 1.5 pounds per part. Now the oil combination is different for each part. This side is using 10% shea butter, and I want to load that into one side of the bar. This is the side without the clay. The oils and lye water solution have had plenty time to settle down and become cool. Right now, they're within 10 degrees of each other, so now is the time to make the soap batter. On this side of the bar, we'll be adding our fragrance, our colorant, and the salt. You may have noticed in the first clips that I'm using a nice balance of hard oils. Once this is prepared and poured, we're going to pour the second layer right on top, so I want a recipe that will firm up quickly and not take forever to trace. 10% of shea butter will certainly do this, along with the palm and coconut oils. This will get me set into the time frame I want to move along at a consistent pace without having to wait forever or rush too quickly with the second part. The fragrance is a key feature to this bar. I love using rose every chance I get, but I hate when my cosmetics are so strong I feel like I've been punched in the face by a bridesmaid. So we're going to bring down the floral with fresh linen in a 1-to-1 ratio. Next, I'm adding 2 tablespoons of sea salt. Now this is enough to get the mineral toning quality in the bar without going overboard. If we add too much salt, the drying effect will compete with the shea butter. Now this amount will give us a nice mottled look without the harsh texture. The salt I'm using is sea salt. These are the larger granules. You can expect the salt to dissolve a little bit in the batter, but the hard large granules won't suck up all the moisture from the oils as much as if you use the table salt or that flaky flat kosher salt. The difference is subtle, but the sea salt or the Himalayan salt gives you a better result. To get that light summer rose color, I'm going to use raspberry red cosmetic grade mica colorant. I'll add this in here, and all we have left to do is make sure this is all blended in well and then get it transferred over into the mold. Once this is poured, I'm going to set this aside to firm up just a bit and get started making the top half of the project. It'll only take about 7 minutes in real time, but 2 minutes in video edited time to make the top half. So this is perfect for the pink half to stiffen up, and then I'll be able to place the clay half on top. Of course, I do have my lye water solution standing by. It's a good idea to make both parts before you start the project so you don't have to wait for it to cool down all over again. Now the second half of this recipe is formulated to omit the shea butter on this half. The whole purpose of the clay is for drawing out impurities and drawing oil away from the skin. I want to keep the moisturizing conditioning side on one half and the oil drying formula on the other half. This way, if you use this as a facial bar, you can use this in your facial cleansing stages. Now that our oils have melted, we can combine the mixture and get moving along with the top half of this recipe. Remember, this time I'm working without the shea butter, and you might think that this means it'll stay thinner a bit longer, but not when we add the clay, so this is going to move pretty fast. We'll make the cold process batter the same way we did in step 1, and again add the fragrances, which is the same blend of Victorian rose and fresh linen. Remember, this is only 1/2 the unit, so 3/4 of an ounce is the total amount of fragrance oil we'll be using. I'll blend this in for a moment, and then it's time to add our fluffy kaolin clay. Here I have just under an ounce, and you can see just how quickly the soap will become thick. Sometimes a white kaolin clay is enough to turn the batter white, which I do want in this case, but today my clay is a cream color, so I am going to give it a little bit of help with some titanium dioxide and brighten up this half of the soap. Now I keep my titanium dioxide pre-prepared and already dissolved in water. So I'm going to add about a tablespoon to 1.5 pounds of soap, and here this will lighten up our batter just a little bit. When it's time to lay the top layer, the bottom half has firmed up very nicely, and I can get this transferred without too much trouble. So I'll spritz the surface with rubbing alcohol to help me with the adhesion of the two halves. And you might think, a mica layer would look nice, why not put in a little bit of a decoration? Well, often with my double-sided soaps, I'll put in a little bit of a divider, but I don't have the best luck when I make one with such heavy clay. The texture's already dry, and I find that these recipes are the most likely to fail in sticking together when I add them. Now the top in this recipe is heavier than the bottom half, so it takes a little bit of maneuvering, but the bottom's holding up perfectly after about 5 minutes, so the two halves will form perfectly in the mold. If you find that you pour this in a loaf mold and you're having difficulty keeping the top half straight, try pouring this in a flat mold, and the thinner layers are more likely to firm up more quickly. And then the weight of the top is also spread more thin, so it's not so heavy. So that could be a solution to those who have any trouble with this. And finally, just as we're finishing up, I'm going to take just a little bit of time to give the top a little bit of a texture. It's not too fancy, but before we're done, I'm going to dust the top with a crust of pink Himalayan sea salt. And then we'll give this 24 hours to set up before we cut it open. Now, if you've made it through this far in the video, you have the basic steps you need to make a nice dual salt and clay bar. And if you need more details in any of the steps you've seen here today, don't forget the printable materials are ready to be downloaded, which include the full recipe and my notes on some of these ingredients so you know how they interact in your recipe. And if you've enjoyed the featuring of other artists, please give this video a thumbs up and let me know in the comments box if there are other ways that you can think of how we can feature talented soap makers and their work. I'll be adding a banner to the Facebook group that features Melanie's store at the top of the group, and if you're a soap maker and you'd like to be included, there is a folder in the Facebook group where you can place your photos and store name, and I'll rotate some of those through. As always, if you'd like to catch the next Thermal Mermaid video, make sure you subscribe to this channel and hit the notification bell. Now this has been firming up for 24 hours, and it's time to cut our slices and look inside. And as you can see, we have a perfectly sweet and simple dual-sided salt and clay bar. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Thermal Mermaid's Rose Linen, Pink Sea Salt, and Kaolin Clay. We'll catch you in the next episode.